Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Tete, the Opera Festival from Cockpit Broadcasting, our second and last show of the night. As we career towards the end of the festival, we're still at the Cockpit, though our live shows are finished, and we have about 5-6 more broadcasts to go, and 3 more live shows that you can catch this week and next. Anyway, right now we're here to enjoy Singlr by Laurie Lixenberg. We'll talk about it slightly more in a second, but the 2 bits of housekeeping to come up with first are, first, that we've kept the ticket price for these broadcasts very low because we thought it was better you show your appreciation through donations at the end rather than before you've seen it. We wanted as many people as possible to come along and enjoy, or even not enjoy, up to you. And if you do want to make a donation at the end, we'll come back to this as well. There's a link in the chat, easydonate.org/Singlr. The second thing, the second thing to say is that it's an interactive broadcast in that we invite you very warmly to pose questions to the panel who will discuss the piece after the performance. And the way that you do this is by typing your questions into the chat. They then get magically relayed by a team of 3 people, amazingly, to a screen in front of me, and I will then pass them on to the piano. So do ask, because there's a lot to talk about in this piece. I think possibly safer for me to let the performance speak for itself, and then we will go into a bit more detail afterwards. But it is the tip of a very large iceberg, much of which has yet to come into being. I think this will become apparent. Let's see what you think. Enjoy Sing.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Singlr. I'm Laurie Lixenberg, representing the Singlr app development team of Laurie Lixenberg, Stuart Meller, and Sean. Singlr is an appera, and people meet online through the app by the power of their own voices. The only thing they're allowed to upload as a profile is their voice, their vocal creativity, their vocal beauty, their vocal marvellousness. That is the only thing. No photographs, no information of any sort apart from the voice and nothing more. So they meet each other and they decide which voice floats their boat. They decide on their future partner by the power of the sound of someone's mellifluous tones. Maybe that someone sounds like, or someone sounds like, or someone says, or someone sounds like, or someone's Enjoy the show.
Ew. 아유, 오. 왜요? 아, 우와. 뭐다? 이거 뭐? 똥똥똥똥. Ripate, ripa, ripa, ripa,
Recording in progress.
Well, I love how we fade back into the real world to the sound of Laurie's hazmat suit. What a thing that was. A reminder reminder that if you want to see this project go further, you need to make a donation to easydonate.org Singlr. But probably the most sensible thing to do is to start talking with Laurie, the creator of this, about what the project really is and how it may go further. Laurie, if you'd like to join us, and our other panellist, Leo Dalton, who's marketing director of Tete, but also creator with Virtually Opera of a completely other line of attack to interactive opera. Anyway, Laurie, where did it come from and where's it going?
Well, it's kind of, actually I got the idea in 2017, and it had a bit of a frustrating start. That there were lots of setbacks for one reason and another, but I just think the idea is so strong, it's so good, and it's so kind of I just think there's something about it. So I just really pushed until I decided no. I ended up going to York University to do a PhD with about mixing analog and digital opera and using digital formats to make new operas, and it was specifically really to learn about all this and mix with different people who also are doing this kind of work. And yeah, so that's how it began, and it began basically, also in 2017 I declared everything in my life is an extended vocal. So my breakfast is an extended vocal. This that I'm doing here now is an extended vocal. So that is my entire existence. And also the idea of trying to, this whole thing about words being used now, like they're so twisted. I mean, this kind of that was, as you know, the whole Voice Party thing of with the Dominic Cummings-esque kind of, make Britain great, blah, 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 and the whole kind of filibuster that we're treated to on a daily basis from various people who are in positions of power. So it's a sort of trying to get beyond the traditional meaning of word in any language and sort of going back to some kind of formation of sounds, and that we can maybe get some different kind of communication through that. So that's sort of where it came from, and where it's going to. This is the test phase of the project. So now it's going into a prototype phase, which will involve more people, and then there's going to be another showing, performance, whatever you call it, in York in the autumn, probably beginning of October, end of September, and the app will run for a month before that, which will give me a chance then, or give us a chance to collect the different profiles that people upload and weave them into a sound design, which I did to a little bit here, but it was very light. I mean, also also with that, I've got these recordings of different cafes from all over the world, and one of the things that I wanted to do was make each table into a different bit of the world, and maybe an intergalactic one. So I was triggering those from my laptop, but and I quite like the effect. Actually, it's quite nice. I quite like the idea of that as well. But then I'm sort of, so I've got a clear idea of how it's going, because it's not just a dating app, it is an opera, and that's very, very important, because lots of people have said things to me like, oh, you could do this and you could do that, and I'm like, yeah, I know. Then go to Tinder, go to GRINDR, go to any of these other things that are dating apps. Brilliant, enjoy yourself. This is an opera. It's a new form, or I don't know if it's new, there might be someone else doing it. That's the problem with saying it's new, isn't it? That there's always somebody in Australia or India or something who had exactly the same idea. No, I don't really care, that's fine. But it's a experimental form, let's call it that, an experimental form of opera, which is trying to go beyond representation and trying to sort of blur the boundary between everyday and performance life, but in a kind of in a kind of a controlled way. So it's a sort of sense of freedom and control, So that's what it's trying, and sort of mixing this kind of thing of, you know, this online life. We really have got a whole other layer of existence going on, and there are some people whose existence is purely online. It's like another kind of sort of very conceptual sort of existence. I'm quite interested in this kind of, because we are flesh, we're bone, and we kind of like breath, and we get ill, and we get grumpy, and so it doesn't matter. So yeah, you can say, well, okay, everything's going very digital now. The fact is, we have to deal with this in the end. So I'm quite interested in formats that combine those two, rather than being purely digital, purely analog. So it's trying to do that as well.
This is really, really interesting, following on from our earlier broadcast tonight, Helena, which was, well, covering much of the same territory in a very, very different way. But it's so clear in your mind, and I think it is very clear actually what's going on. But it wouldn't do any harm to go back round it again, maybe even a few times, that you are making an app where people interact purely on the basis of the sound of their own voice.
Exactly.
Through that. And that is really what SINGLR is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the manifestation that we did in the festival was a way of trying to show people what that is. What do you think?
Well, that's a very, very good question. I mean, it's Deleuzian in that it's got so many different tendrils radiating out from it. So it is that what you stated. Absolutely, but that for me, that's very much the starting point, because with the dating app scene, you've got Tinder. It's very ocular. People they go left, right, up, down. That's it. Bam. It's very simplistic. It's like these monkeys kind of doing. It's like there's not much thought in it. It's like being in some kind of sweet shop or something. And there's nothing wrong with that on one level. But I think if you take that out of the equation, what people look like, and you're just listening to the voice. So there's this kind of psychological aspect to it. So with the SINGLR app, the only profile you put is your voice. That is it. Bam. Nothing else. And you're encouraged to use your voice in a very particular way. So we don't have anyone in the summertime. We don't have any of that going on. It's kind of like, it's much more, you're encouraged to also create a profile for yourself that represents you. It's your kind of it's your vocal photograph, you know, and that's kind of touching something in a way. And you know, with these apps and also with Instagram, all these things, you know, it's the thing. It's like and it's kind of so infantile, and they kind of like the filters and all that kind of stuff, which can be used in a very creative way, and that's great fun. But it can be used in that kind of catfish kind of way to completely obscure what you actually are. You know, well, here I am sitting with this bright orange mouth and everything. But I mean, you know, I'm going to wipe that off. It's kind of I think it's different. And so there's that aspect to it, right? So you're sort of trying to encourage people, or trying to locate their creativity. And then there's the messaging part of the app, where then they message each other and they can have this kind of conversation. This is one thing I thought would be nice with the app, is to make a kind of a chat room, a extended voice chat room, where more than one person, two people can be in there at the same time, having an extended voice chat. That's sort of on the back burner. But so then it's sort of bringing those conversations into sort of shedding a light on them in a way, a sort of sonic light, by presenting them as a performance. So I think it's quite important. So yes, that there is the app side of it, but this actual performance is also really important. And also what I like about it is that it's like a sort of slice of life, and you sort of put it on a stage, and or certainly this way of doing it that we did at Tete. I mean, it's just amazing to get that space, that opportunity. I don't know anyone else that would have done that, you know, frankly. I think it's what you've managed to do is become this fantastic opera company that is an umbrella for things, but you've managed to do it without becoming an ossified institution. You've managed to do that, and it's amazing, because I don't know anywhere else that would have frankly taken this on.
Well, it all comes from the input of artists like you. It's probably quite interesting to talk to the audience a bit, because we've been through quite a process in the last year of COVID deflecting you from your original purpose. So what we presented is not necessarily what you would have set out to do in other times, and it might be worth just exploring that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the COVID did castrate it a little bit. However, the freedom of restriction, blah, blah, blah. So obviously, although I thought with only 3 couples, it gave it a kind of a clarity that I quite liked. I mean, I think that what would have been good is if there were a few more couples, and that the audience could have walked around them. And they would have been more like a sort of a gallery feel, or like a sort of a promenade feel to it. However, what I've learned from this is that the clarity is very, very nice. So if I got a chance in York, if it works out that the COVID restrictions are not so bad by then, or that the Lambada hasn't arrived, there's a new variant, the Lambada.
Oh no!
So, yeah. So we might have that. So I don't know. Who knows? It might be completely on Twitch or something. So I try it like that, and I'm just going to get more of those screens, so there's some sonic separation. But then your suggestion of it being completely in the dark, where people have to locate each other further, because it is about listening. It's about the act of listening, and about the act of producing sound, listening to sound, and being completely non-judgmental in terms of look, and also in sound, non-judgmental in terms of sound. It's sort of encouraging. It's like it's a sort of a transnational, transgender, completely everything, all those things.
What we do see is we see the communication includes a lot of visual communication in what we did in the theatre. We were talking about that a bit before. So, would you like to eliminate that?
I don't know.
I
honestly don't know, because there's something. I mean, one thing I do know is I want to try that dark version, because I think there's something in that which is like a sort of purely sonic, amazing, fabulous. Also, it'd be quite interesting if they did find the person that they've been messaging, or if they ended up with someone completely different.
Yeah, I mean, you could also do what you just did, but with opaque screens. I think your decision was right here, because the audience doesn't know who it is if 3 of the voices are not there anyway. And I think your promenade idea is great, because you can zoom in as an audience member, so you, rather than getting this wash, which actually the film edit did rather well. It made it kind of easier to get from person to person than it might have been in the room.
Yes, it's like you're walking around them.
Yeah. Leo, you know so much about interactive theatre, and you're making interactive opera. So in the map of interactive performance, where does this sit? Is Laurie right? Are there lots of people doing this?
Well, I think it's interesting with interactive theatre specifically, and music, because of course there is always the challenge of the moment you say the audience can do whatever they want, you can't score it, which gives a lot of freedom in terms of what happens. The thing I love about this piece in particular, and since I haven't said it yet, I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. It was nice to hear it again. Is how, because it is so non-representational in terms of what it's doing, yes, it has the sort of formal structure of a date, but I'm assuming that the general assumption is most people don't come out of this and then go, right, let's, run off and do whatever people who date each other do. Not entirely my area of expertise. I'm a marketing director and librettist. So it's very interesting seeing how in interactive theatre you would usually try and have some sort of sense of at least the shape you want. You would know that about 40 minutes in you wanted a point of, climax, because that then gives the audience a narratively satisfying experience. And most interactive theatre is narrative, whereas this is so figurative. It's absolutely delightful that I was talking to another colleague at Tete, Anna Gregg, our administrative director, afterwards, and we both read very different things in it. But as an audience member, I suspect that, again, they would have a very different thought process. I will admit, I am lucky enough to be in York, and it's one of those things where I'm sort of thinking, how do I get in on that? Because I'm sure as an audience member, it's a fascinating form of interaction.
Well, I mean, that's, you know, another thing I want to say is that anyone who wants to get involved with the next phase, just email Tete or email me, and the invites to the app will be sent out. I mean, at the moment, it's always going to be free. At the moment, it's a purely browser-based app, but obviously, it's just the idea of grappling with both the Apple and the Android Play Store thing, and just forget it. I mean,
yeah.
You know, it's free anyway, and also there's something a bit more underground about not being on those stores. I mean, eventually it will be, probably, maybe, I don't know, whatever. I'm not so bothered about that, to be honest. The App Store.
I mean, how much direction did they get beforehand? Because I'm aware that due to COVID, you had to bring them in for like a safety check, but
Yeah, that's right.
equally, I'm guessing that it, you know, I got the feeling like they weren't getting a huge amount of steer from you.
No.
Yeah, I was going to ask the question before that, which is, who are they? Where did they come from?
So I knew them all, and they're people I've. So George, I've known for many years. I did a piece with him. In fact, he was music director on a piece I did in Portugal. Janice Kerbal piece called Doug, which was based on a sort of a cartoon, and it was fantastic. And we sort of did quite a lot together. And he's part of a group called the Vocal Constructivists, so he's pretty special. James, he's at York. He's a postgrad student at York, and Elizabeth Dobson I met through Coma, Contemporary Music Making for All, because I've been running various things there, and the next thing's going to be, anyway, so I met her through that. And Finn also, and Elif, is through Coma, and Utkuch also, So I know them all.
And Leo's question, what was their process?
So the process was, I sent them the link to the app. I mean, various people had the link to the app, and that you uploaded your profile, and then there's on the app, there's kind of videos of me. I know it's visual, but I thought, because I'm trying to basically give people tips on extended vocals, I felt it was quite important they'd need to see that, because it's quite difficult to, effectively, they're little 1 to 3 minute singing lessons on different aspects of extended vocal technique. So they're little short videos of me going, now you can do this with consonants, if you breathe like this, the placement, and I've got like graphs of the vocal apparatus so that people get more au fait with their own instruments. But then there's also a section of it, which was Stuart's idea, the wild card section, and that is kind of tips and meditations. So, for instance, I did a forest bathing meditation, and then there's going to be various recipes for different herbal teas, and that will be purely oral, because you don't need to see me to do that. I mean, in fact, it's more effective if you're lying there, sort of letting for that I've been making different kind of soundscapes, and so it's really quite sort of detailed, quite complex, quite rich, in fact. And these things are going to grow, and there'll be more sections of. And I might split that up even into meditations, recipes. There's always going to be so I'm like the Singlr opera bot, the friendly auntie Singlr opera bot, extended vocal advice kind of character. And it's just a kind of, because it is also this aspect of people, people tend to use, it's apparently a myth that you only use 10% of your brain, but it's not a myth that you only use 10% of your voice. I mean, most people don't use their whole voice in their lives, and then they kind of go, oh, but I can't sing. I'm like, yeah, but you haven't even tried really to locate all the different bits of your voice. I mean, I'm interested in I love singers. And they're great and they're fantastic to get singers. But people who are non-singers, I love as well, because it's that kind of desire to communicate, which is very beautiful and engaging and sort of fascinating, you know.
I may actually be able to help with that. I'm working with a community theatre company up in York who are actors who don't all sing, but some of them may be the kind of people who are willing, if that's useful.
That would be fantastic. I mean, seriously, because also, so the York one will be with the York University Yuzu, and that, you know, if Corona doesn't make it go tits up, and they've got a lounge bar which we can use. So it'll be a very different kind of performance. So I'm going to try it in a different kind of situation.
There's a question that's on my mind, going back to what you were talking about with teaching people to sing, and this is, I think I've worked out how to phrase it, because on one hand you're talking a lot about authenticity. You're, you know, very much contrasting it with Tinder, where it's a very visual, stylized representation of self, and on one hand that's a very utopian vision of, you know, you can be authentic here. Of course, extended vocal technique is almost by definition a sort of stylized representation of self, and I'm still trying to make up my mind whether I'm reading this as sort of techno-utopian. If you learn how to do extended vocal technique, then you can actually present yourself as you wish to, or whether learning is a more full manifestation of your true self, and there's, you know, having that freedom is one of the sort of ultimate cyberpunk dreams of the internet, is you can be who you want to be because you feel that's more true. Or is it techno-dystopian because we have the sort of ultimate elite of Laurie Lixenberg and Rosie Middleton just cruising through Singlr, picking up everyone, and then Leo sort of...
I don't think so. I think if somebody heard my voice, they'd probably run a mile. I mean, you know, because you're trained, it doesn't mean it's attractive. I mean, that's the thing about opera, is like you kind of think of why they all sound like Tarzan. You know, it's kind of like really weird. And it's kind of, there's a sort of a, I mean, it's neither dystopian nor utopian. I'm not really interested in those two parameters, to be honest. It's kind of like, utopias are great, dystopias are not great, or is it the other way around? I don't know.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm interested in creativity, and it's the thing about the way people look is that there's actually very little variation in what is allowed to be attractive, what you're allowed to find beautiful, what you're allowed to find attractive, blah, blah, blah. Arguably, it's similar with the voice. I mean, the way people talk about voices sometimes on the traditional opera scene, I think is hilarious. You're kind of like, you know, what are you saying? I mean, I remember seeing a production at the Opera House of Die Tote Stadt. I was in tears. I was like, oh my God, because I thought the woman who did Marietta was so brilliant. And then this woman next to me said, well, she obviously got that role because of her legs. I mean, you know, it's certainly not the voice. And I'm thinking, but what about the performance? I mean, it's completely... So there's something around creativity. That's what I'm interested in. And I think with extended vocals, because at the moment it might change, but at the moment it's kind of like it's still a sort of a strange, it's like considered slightly strange. So it's a crack. And it's kind of, in that crack, you can find something else that's between the institutions, sort of thing. And so I think you can still find your own way of going about your vocalization without any value judgments or being sort of like, you know, told it's good or bad or anything. It's like about creativity, the desire to communicate. What does that yield?
We should remind the audience they can lob in their own questions as well. And I don't know who they are, I can't see them, but I'd love to know what you got, Laurie, and maybe if there's any in the audience, what they have to say about their own feedback. What was it like for them to take part in this? What did they say to you afterwards? Or if you're there, what did you think afterwards?
Well, James said that he felt more comfortable with his own voice, and that he felt like quite invigorated by it. And James isn't here, but that's his feedback. He was quite sort of excited by it, so which is great. I'm hoping he'll be in the prototype as well.
Oh, that's nice. Anybody else? Did anybody else feedback to you, Laurie?
Elif, yeah, I mean, they were all kind of. Elizabeth gave some quite interesting feedback in that the amount of time you're allowed to leave a message is too short, and like that I'm sort of thinking maybe that some of the timings should be extended on the app that make it a bit longer. So
aria as well as recitative.
Yeah, exactly. It was very positive feedback,
Yeah, they seem to be having a really good time. Yeah, they seem to really enjoy themselves. Leo, you were going to say.
We've got a question from an audience member, from Philip Matty. Laurie, are you interested in the performance as a whole, the whole app, or the interactions that individuals will have with one another? Do you see them as separate things?
Really good question. They are not separate things. They're part of the whole, for sure. It's like they might come across as separate, and maybe they're not. Maybe they're not unified yet, but they're absolutely part of. It's this whole thing of, you've got two layers of the analog world and the digital world, and but they're two layers meeting. So it's definitely a whole. And in fact, one thing that Frederick was saying, who's my partner, he said that actually there should be sort of app, the code kind of changing on a screen. That would kind of marry the two worlds maybe a little bit more, like the marriage of heaven and hell, and you decide which is which kind of thing.
Can you say that again? I didn't quite.
That there should be some representation of the app in the performance, so it's like the changing code, or like somehow people. In fact, Elif and Utkuch were doing the app on. That's what they were doing with their phones. So, but you couldn't really get that. They would need to have been. It was a sudden decision. It would need to have been put through the speakers or something.
I almost want to see the whole thing done in confession boxes.
Yeah. It looks a bit like that, didn't it?
I just suddenly realised when you were talking about the heaven and hell thing, it's sort of actually, yeah, I'd quite like to just get 10 confession boxes and have a bunch of singlers in them.
That's really fun. Ooh, hello. Ooh, bless me, Father, for I have sinned.
I have singlet.
Or I'm about to sin.
Yeah, there's definitely something about booths, and I mean, there's so many possibilities for where it can go, aren't there? I'm still processing, and probably will forever, Leo's question about, is it that are you liberating people's inner selves through extended vocal technique? That's the aim, isn't it? Rather than trying to get them to transform into one thing, like the Instagram filters.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a question of maybe if they transform, that's great, and but it's more. I'm just curious, if people connect more with their voices, what would the outcome be? And if they experimented more, what would the outcome be? And then so you have this situation presented as a performance, which is not a representation, but it's actually happening, unfolding in front of you, but with this kind of quite sort of learnt method of vocalization. I mean, in a way, it's to do also with the voice party, because it's. I was quite curious when I was doing my campaign in extended vocals. The reaction of people was just absolutely amazing. I kind of thought, wow.
Well, we should tell the audience what the voice party is.
Yeah, so the voice party was it's a party for voices. It's the only party you cannot join. It joins you, and basically it would take music and put it in the very centre of politics. So at the moment we're sort of cringing at the background, grateful for any crumbs of support, and we're despised by the Tory party, certainly, and we're reviled, and they're cutting everything, and it's like completely revolting, and you kind of think, why? And then you sort of have things where totalitarian states where they ban music altogether. I mean, it's going to happen again in Afghanistan with the Taliban, in Malawi it happened, I mean, lots of places. So it would put music really at the centre of society, also the other arts, visual arts, dance, all those things. And then we see what happens from that if you put it at the centre, because music brings things together, it knits things together, it brings together the arts and the sciences, it unites the two parts of the brain. I mean, when you have people with dementia or Alzheimer's, rhythm, music, and swear words apparently are stored. I can't remember which side, but anyway, they stay. It's a gift, and so that's why they can dance and all that. So I'm sort of curious to know, and it was really fascinating when I was doing this.
Well, we should say, Laurie, I'm just doing it for beginners because there'll be people here who've no idea about anything, that you did stand for elections in Germany and Britain, didn't you?
That's right. Germany it was 2017 and Britain it was 2019, obviously. I was in Diane Abbott's constituency, and the next election I want to stand, so I'll stand here in Stoke Newington again, but you'll stand in Cornwall, and I'm going to have James standing in York. So it's going to be like more people, it's going to be a bigger thing.
On the topic of politics in SINGLR, I was trying to think, because we're talking about people with false representations, can you lie on SINGLR? I'm trying to work out, is there a way that I can be on SINGLR and lie, since even the act of lying would be a creative act and therefore a singular thing?
It's true, but you can't, I mean, I suppose you could lie in extended vocals. That's a really good question.
It's a really good question.
It's much harder to lie in extended vocals.
It is indeed. I'm watching my clock ticking down, but I think it's quite a marvellous note to end on that, how, Laurie, you're changing the world through extended vocals. When you're having a go.
It's exhausting. I'm just like, well, you know what I'm doing? I'm trying to create a world that I can exist in personally. That's it. Because I can't quite deal with the one at the moment. It's driving me crazy. I'm just going to go mad. I mean, with Brexit and the fires, it's just too much. So it's like a delightful world of vocalization that I can escape into.
Well, let's leave our audience, with that dream rather than that of the other side. Thank you both very much, and thanks for a great show. And
Thank you.
Thank you, audience.
Good night.
Good night.